is Nancy Roberts. I'm an economics professor at Arizona State University. Today we're going to continue our discussion of perfect competition. In the last video, we listed the criteria that were necessary for an industry to be characterized as perfectly competitive. There had to be lots of buyers and sellers, the product had to be homogeneous, there had to be knowledge of price and availability, and the fourth and probably most important criteria was the mobility of resources, or the freedom of entry and exit into the industry. So what I want to do today is generate revenues for a firm in a perfectly competitive industry. A really good example in the US of a perfectly competitive industry would be agriculture. So let's consider a market, the market for wheat. So I'm going to draw the wheat market. I'll put it right here. There's a supply of wheat, there's a demand for wheat, and let's just say that the price is $2 and that in fact 3 billion bushels are exchanged between buyer and seller every time period. There are actually thousands of wheat farmers in this market. And so what we want to do is understand how any one individual firm in this market, any one of the thousands of producers in this market, make their decisions about how much output to supply and also price. And to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull out what I call a representative firm in the industry, an average firm in the industry. And let's put that firm over here. So this is the market, the whole entire market. This is Farmer Brown. So this is an individual firm in this market. And Farmer Brown is interested in maximizing profits. Now, what we know about Farmer Brown is that he's one of thousands who supply wheat to this market. So Farmer Brown is what we call a price taker in this market. And by that we mean Farmer Brown looks at these 3 billion bushels that are supplied and notices that the price is $2. Farmer Brown might like to sell his 100 bushels, 1,000 bushels at $2.10 a bushel. But if Farmer Brown goes to the market and says, I want $2.10 for my wheat, the market looks at him and says, go to your room. Look, there's 3 billion bushels available at $2. Your product is homogeneous. It's no different than these 3 billion bushels. So you can sell your wheat, your 100 bushels, your 1,000 bushels, as long as you accept this price of $2. So Farmer Brown and every firm in a competitive market is what we call a price taker. He sells his wheat at the price the market sets. So what we want to do is we want to look at Farmer Brown's revenue curves, given that he's a price taker. And so, where am I going to put my revenue curves? I'm going to put them right here. So let's generate revenue curves for Farmer Brown. If Farmer Brown supplies, this is quantity supplied, if Farmer Brown supplies 1 bushel of wheat to the market, he knows the price that he can sell that wheat at is $2. If he sells a second bushel of wheat, if he supplies a second bushel of wheat to the market, he knows he can also sell that for $2. If he sells 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 100 or 1,000, they will all sell for $2. So if we look at Farmer Brown's total revenue curve, what we notice is selling 1 bushel at $2, his total revenue would be $2. Selling 2 bushels at $2 a piece, it would be $4. $6, $8, $10, $12. So this is what Farmer Brown's total revenue curve looks like. Let's just draw it over here. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. If we want to graph Farmer Brown's total revenue curve, then we just put output on this axis, total revenue on this axis, and my total revenue curve is going to look like that. Every time I sell another bushel, my revenue is going to go up by $2. So total revenue looks like that. Now, we want to generate Farmer Brown's per unit curves as well. So let's look at Farmer Brown's marginal revenue, and let's remind ourselves what we mean by marginal revenue. It means the additional revenue every time we sell another bushel. So when we sell the first bushel, our total revenue goes from $0 to $2. So the marginal revenue of the first bushel will be $2. When we sell a second bushel, our total revenue goes from $2 to $4. So the additional revenue generated by the second bushel is $2. We sell the third bushel, our total revenue goes from $4 to $6. Additional revenue is $2. So my marginal revenue curve is horizontal at the price. And so if we just make this our per unit curves, I'm going to put Q here, and this is the firm. Here I have the market. I'm going to have the firm here. This is Farmer Brown. Farmer Brown, if he sells one bushel, the additional revenue he will generate is $2. If he sells 2 bushels, the additional revenue is $2. If he sells 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, the additional revenue is always $2. So this is Farmer Brown's marginal revenue curve. So let's generate Farmer Brown's average revenue curve. Average revenue. What does average revenue mean? It means if we sell 3 bushels, our total revenue will be $6. On average, how much revenue is generated by each of those 3 bushels? Well, it would be $2. If we sell 6 bushels, our total revenue will be $12. So on average, the revenue generated by each of those 6 bushels is $2. So as it turns out, average revenue is also $2. So this is also Farmer Brown's average revenue curve. So now we have Farmer Brown's total revenue curve, his marginal revenue curve, and his average revenue curve. Now, Farmer Brown wants to maximize profits. And so his decision is not what price shall I charge, because he's a price taker. Farmer Brown's decision is, given that the price is going to be $2, how much output should I supply to the market at $2? And the answer for Farmer Brown, and the answer for every firm who produces, is that the optimal amount is the amount where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Now, in previous videos, we've talked about marginal costs. And we know that since all firms are subject to the law of diminishing marginal productivity, all firms have similarly shaped marginal cost curves. On a different scale, obviously, but here's Farmer Brown's marginal cost curve. And so what we are saying is that the optimal amount for Farmer Brown to produce, I'm going to call it Q star, is the amount where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. Now let's convince ourselves of that. It's no good to just memorize that. Let's convince ourselves that that's correct. So for example, I'm saying Q star is optimal. Well, why not sell Q star plus 1? Why not sell one more? Well, let's see what one more looks like. One more looks like that. Q star plus 1 plus 1. And you can see this unit will generate an additional $2 in revenue. But you can also see that this unit cost $2.50 to make. So it's not profitable to make a unit that costs $2.50 and only sell it for $2. So it clearly makes no sense to go beyond Q star. Okay, so now let's convince ourselves that producing less than Q star is not optimal. So let's just do this unit right here, which is Q minus 1. And what we notice about this unit is, if we produce it and sell it, we're going to generate $2 in revenue. We also notice that to produce that unit, this unit Q minus 1, it only cost us $1.50. So we will produce a unit for $1.50 and sell it for $2. That's good. So the thing is, if you want this 50 cents in revenue greater than cost, you actually have to produce and sell this unit. So here's the next question. How about this unit right here? Q squiggle, let's call it, Q squiggle. That unit costs $1.75 to make, and you'll sell it for $2. Do you want that 25 cents? Yes. Well, then you have to produce and sell this unit. Do you want this 10 cents? Yes. How about this 3 cents? Yes. So, in other words, to take in all of this revenue, additional revenue greater than additional cost, you have to produce to where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. So in economics, we often say decisions are made at the margin. The decision for Farmer Brown is to produce where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. Okay, so let's tidy this up a little bit, and in our next video, we will talk about profits. We generated revenues, now we want to talk about profits so we can see supply. We'll do that in the next video.